I mean, what are you supposed to do when the government starts doing unconstitutional things? We are the Armed Attorneys. Today we're talking about the Illinois Sheriff's opposition to enforcing weapons ban, and it signals the rightward movement about the constitutional authority there in the state of Illinois. But before we begin, show your support for the Second Amendment by hitting that like button. Our friends over at Northtac are sponsoring this video and have an exciting announcement. Delta Team Tactical and Northtac have teamed up to provide you with high-quality, battle-tested products for all your firearms needs. Whether you're upgrading or building, Delta Team Tactical and Northtac have you covered. Click the link in the description below and get 10% off. This is an exclusive code. Check them out. Now, Edwin, today we're talking about, we have 90 counties in the state of Illinois that have, out of 102, 90 out of 102, that's a huge percentage, that has signaled that they are not going to be enforcing a bunch of Illinois' ridiculous gun laws.
Well, the main one that they're talking about not enforcing one is the quote-unquote assault weapons ban.
Yep.
And we have many videos talking about how ridiculous the term assault weapons is. Basically, we're just talking about semi-automatic sporting rifles. That's it. Previously, many communities in the Illinois and the Chicago area have their individual assault weapons ban. And of course, the state legislature then passed a statewide assault weapons ban. And the sheriffs in the rural counties, which 90 out of 102 counties are rural, those sheriffs have said, look, this is ridiculous and we're not going to enforce it. And they've also said, we believe, we being the sheriffs, believe that it's a violation of the Second Amendment. Now, of course, the big story here, the big kerfuffle, is that previously the sheriffs apparently had said, we're going to wait for the courts to decide.
Yeah, they talk about that judicial, we're going to let the judiciary handle its own business. We're going to stay out of this. And this seems to be kind of a change. I mean, this is all pointed out by the Chicago Tribune, so we understand what the motivation is here. But I don't think that's a very persuasive argument. I think sheriffs take the oath of office to preserve the Constitution of the United States. I mean, what are you supposed to do when the government starts doing unconstitutional things?
Most states, now I have not myself read the Illinois Constitution. However, I'm assuming that the sheriff is a constitutionally created office in Illinois, and as a constitutionally created office, that sheriff owes him and the public a duty to only enforce laws that he believes are in fact constitutional. So now I guess the state can try to come in and overrule him with the state police of Illinois. But whenever you're just out there, say you're walking around southern Illinois through the cornfields and you have your AR-15 just in case you need to shoot a coyote or a wild hog or something, and a sheriff deputy rolls up on you, you can do that in the security that you probably won't be cuffed and arrested. Now, state trooper rolls up, probably a different story, but the majority of law enforcement in those rural areas is probably the sheriff's department.
Yeah, and I think it just kind of illustrates the point. If we didn't know already, and I've heard horror stories about just how much control the city of Chicago has over the rest of the state. I mean, I've talked to people who live in subdivisions outside of the city proper, and they say, man, we got to vote the way we vote, or else, I mean, they'll literally divert bus lines and train lines and all kinds of stuff, make their life a living hell. It seems like the rest of the state is kind of getting strong-armed by kind of a pretty small area.
Oh, yeah. In Illinois, it's always been well known that Chicago is the tail that wags the dog. They have all the political power, and they do not give a hoot about what the rural counties think or believe. That's why this is actually so newsworthy, is because it is kind of the rest of the state standing up to Chicago against their draconian gun laws.
Yeah, and we see this kind of trend going on across the United States, and we're not breaking news here or anything like that. I mean, these are all stories that you can go out and read in the newspaper. You see this with like the greater Idaho movement, with ridiculous Portland kind of controlling the entire state, and maybe some of the counties not wanting to be Portland.
Yeah.
You see this kind of going on everywhere.
Yeah. Eastern Oregon wants to be part of Idaho because they more align with their beliefs. Urban areas are becoming increasingly more Democratic. Rural areas more increasingly Republican. You see this, in fact, here in Texas. In Texas, if you were to look at a map from probably the last 20 years of elections, the only counties that are blue are going to be your urban counties.
Yeah. No, and that's a discussion I've seen come up before, giving up the presupposition. I don't know if y'all have heard of the Texit movement, but, Texas wanting to secede from the United States. And the discussion always comes up, what do we do with Austin?
Well, yes. and now, unfortunately, Dallas and Houston as well. So this is part of a broader movement that highlights the deep political divides in our nation. Because the thing about it is that a lot of stuff is already regulated by the government. And as sort of the issues about what needs to be regulated infringes on more and more constitutionally protected activity, these are litmus test positions. Do you believe in the Second Amendment? Do you not believe in the Second Amendment? This is stuff that people are, willing to go to the mats about when we start regulating. So government has become less about how much money is spent on a particular interest, where the roads are laid out, just general governance, things about like that. And instead, you have one party who absolutely wants to centralize authority and wants to control the private, constitutionally protected activities of individuals. And you have another party that is less inclined to do that. And that's where the line is being drawn.
Yeah, and I think in not telling this community anything we don't know, but I mean, we see so many of our rights are contingent on the right to keep and bear arms. I mean, I think a good illustration of that is just how hard some countries went on lockdowns, for example. We didn't see, I mean, we did have hard lockdowns, and there's still some ridiculous policies going on in the left coast and the Northeast. But I do think, and I can't remember the name of the British commentator, but she pointed out, hey, this probably didn't happen because we have the Second Amendment.
Well, yes. And just getting back to the story, the Illinois sheriffs, this is going to continue to highlight these. The Illinois sheriffs, they probably aren't concerned with other activities that the Illinois legislature does. But whenever it comes to passing laws, enforcing laws, especially laws that make previously law-abiding citizens into felons,
right?
These rural sheriffs they're more in tuned with their population, with the population of their county. And if they know, yeah, I've known this family, for the last 50 years, and I know this family, and I know they have guns, and I know they're not bad people. Why am I going to let these, legislators that come from Chicago tell me that suddenly I got to go arrest these people for felonies?
Yeah, and I do think it helps a little bit with the regulatory confusion that's coming out of the wake of the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruin case, because we have the Supreme Court giving us this great standard by which we judge Second Amendment infringements. And then we have all of these kind of out of control gun grabbing states just scrambling to pass as many gun laws as they can possibly think of. I mean, they're passing these things in a matter of days without necessarily thinking about all the consequences or, who's going to be impacted by all this. I do think that this is a little bit of reassurance to at least to those people in those counties that maybe these reactive laws aren't going to, these aren't going to come up.
Yes, and that's why they want to centralize power, and that's why all the gun grabbers are really pushing for national legislation, and that's why we have to maintain our vigilance in making sure that nothing gets passed by Congress.
I'm interested to see what you folks have to say about this. Do you think these moves by the Illinois sheriffs, what do you think about it? Do you think we need to see this replicated across the country? And to answer a question that I know we're going to see in the comment section, Emily is doing just fine. She was in trial. She will be back shortly. She hasn't left the show, but we hope you enjoy this discussion. If you did, consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and help us fight the anti-2A algorithm by sharing this video, and give a bunch of love to Edwin Walker over here. And until next time, we're the Armed Attorneys.